Coming up, what do these three aircraft have in common? A hint? It's an achievement worth singing about.
113 years later, and we're still learning about what they learned. We'll take you inside the Wright experience.
And sticking it to the city. AOPA Live this week begins right now. As our friend and fellow pilot from Fuller House, Dave Couillet, would say, cut it out.
And that's just what the FAA has told the city of Santa Monica. Well, actually, the FAA needed 10 pages to say it. They told the city to cease and desist its efforts to oust Atlantic Aviation and American Flyers, the two FBOs on the field. The feds had a lot more things to say too, including that plans to take over fuel sales and provide only biojet fuel and unleaded gas showed hostility to aviation and was a clear contravention of the law. The city has 30 days to respond to the FAA.
AOPA is again calling on the FAA to make it easier and more affordable to add low-cost modern technology to existing GA airplanes. The association said the FAA should improve and simplify its software verification process, and it should also take a risk-based approach to granting production approval. That would make it easier for companies to bring affordable primary flight displays, autopilots, engine monitoring systems, and other software-dependent equipment to market. As we told you a couple of weeks ago in our report on the Trio autopilot being STC'd for certified airplanes, there has been progress at the FAA, but a more comprehensive approach is needed. Oh, but hey, things are looking up for the less affordable end of aviation, and it apparently has to do with the election. Aviation International News is reporting that the latest edition of the UBS Jet Market Index has jumped up, particularly in the light jet market. Customers are more interested in buying since the election.
And we're pleased to report that air traffic control services will continue for those new jets and other aircraft. You might not know this, but last Friday we were within an hour of the federal government shutting down again. But just in the nick of time, President Obama signed another stopgap budget bill to keep the federal government running until April 28th. The Senate passed the measure just 1 hour before the government would have shut down. This continuing resolution gives lawmakers breathing room to come up with an actual budget for fiscal year 2017, which actually began back in October. And yes, air traffic control privatization will be a hot topic when Congress gets around to that budget next year.
This Saturday marks the 113th anniversary of the Wright Brothers' first powered flight. Even after all these years, we're still learning about the Wright Brothers' incredible ingenuity and determination. AOPA Live's Josh Cochran takes us inside a shop that reverse engineers the Wrights aircraft to create incredibly accurate reproductions.
A small shop in rural Virginia, home to the Wright Experience, is working to discover the secrets of the Wright brothers. It all started when the Army Aviation Museum in Fort Rucker, Alabama, commissioned a model of the Wright B Flyer.
We thought that we could just go down to the Smithsonian and get some drawings, and there were no drawings, so we were 6 months before we cut the first piece of wood on that airplane.
To build the reproduction, Hyatt and his team had to reverse engineer the whole design.
Photographs are our life's blood, and if with the AutoCAD system that we have, if we can determine one dimension on that airplane, we can develop a complete blueprint of the rest of the airplane.
There were no drawings on purpose. The Wright brothers were secretive to protect their designs.
It would be nothing for us to do if the Wright brothers were not secret. They've given us a challenge to be able to find out what they did know.
Once the blueprints are finished, the team builds the majority of the parts in the shop, including the propellers. The process is a continual search to learn more about the Wrights' designs.
Every day we learned something new about the Wright brothers that we didn't know. We have absolutely gained a lot of admiration for what they were able to accomplish.
The Wright Experience has built many reproductions of the Wrights aircraft. Most notable is the first flyer used in the 2003 Centennial of Flight celebration in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Bad weather kept the flyer from going more than a few feet on the day of the celebration, but the airplane successfully flew several times. The Wright Experience also built the 1902 glider that the public could fly over the dunes of Kitty Hawk. The goal of the Wright Experience is to get students interested in aviation and other STEM fields.
That's the whole purpose of this, is to get young people interested in what the Wright Brothers did and basically show them a practical use of mathematics and science, and to get them to buckle down and say, yes, I can do that as well as Orville and Wilbur can do it.
Josh Cochran, AOPA Live.
You can read more about the Wright experience on our websites. Pretty cool stuff they're doing down there. It's really wonderful what Ken and the group are doing to preserve this aviation history and really keep it alive for generations.
It's amazing. That's a lot of work to put into this, but it's certainly worth the effort.
I was down there on the 100th anniversary of flight, and it was really too bad. The weather was so bad that they really didn't get a chance to get off the ground, but they've done some impressive work since then. Well, hey, last week we had already finished the show when we got the sad news that John Glenn had died at age 95. Most of America remembered John Glenn as the pioneering astronaut, the first American to orbit the Earth. He later returned to space aboard the shuttle Discovery, a 77-year-old astronaut testing the effects of microgravity on an aging body. But age never slowed John Glenn. And we also remember him as a devoted general aviation pilot and AOPA member. He flew as Baron until it became too difficult to climb up on the wing. He was 90 then. As many have said before, Godspeed, John Glenn. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Purchasing your own aircraft is an exciting experience. AOPA Finance simplifies the process, saving you money with lower interest rates and hassle-free loans, so you get into your new aircraft sooner. AOPA Finance, the right approach to buying an aircraft.
Do you ever fly low and slow? Well, of course you do. Every time you take off or land, you're in what the AOPA Air Safety Institute calls the red zone.
Let's be clear. We're not saying the red zone is a dangerous place and should be avoided. Not at all. In fact, it's a normal part of flying. Traffic pattern ops, environmental research, VFR under a low cloud deck all occur in this zone. It's just that flying this close to the ground requires extra vigilance and focus. Why is this important? Because more than 80% of the accidents involving stalls or spins have their origins in low-altitude maneuvering.
This fourth and final installment in the AOPA Air Safety Institute's Margins of Safety video series explores how to safely maneuver aircraft down low. You can find it at the URL there on your screen.
Take out your pad and pencil. Here's something else that could keep you safe. Another survival tip from the Zen pilot.
The next survival tip I'd like to share with you is to maintain an engine log during your flights. Ferry pilots do this every time, and it's very easy to do. You just write down your critical engine readings: manifold pressure, RPMs, fuel flow, cylinder head temperature, exhaust gas temperature if you have a turbocharged aircraft, oil pressure, and oil temperature. And if you're checking them every hour and recording them, you can see a trend as it starts to develop. So you can detect the problem right away. And what you're going to find is engine performance is remarkably predictable. And when you start to see the slightest change, it's time to take action. You could contact somebody using the satellite texting device we talked about in an earlier segment and get help. It might be a flight instructor, it might be your mechanic, it might be a friend who's very familiar with your plane, but definitely a good practice to have. I'm Robert DeLaurentis, Zen Pilot. See you next time for another survival tip.
Thanks, Robert. Find out more on Robert's website, flyingthroughlife.com. And speaking of trends, here's one that's not so good. The number of runway incursions has increased by nearly 53% in the last 5 years. And that's caught the attention of the Department of Transportation's Inspector General. He's just informed the FAA that the IG will audit and evaluate the FAA's runway safety efforts. But hey, we can help you from being added to the naughty list for committing an incursion. The Air Safety Institute has a runway safety online training course. You'll find it in the online learning section of the Institute's website, and you can get there from the Training and Safety tab on AOPA.org.
The AOPA Air Safety Institute also has resources specifically for CFIs, including CFI to CFI, a digital newsletter. The latest edition explains why it's critical to use a checklist with care and explores some of the challenges and opportunities for new flight instructors. You can sign up on our website under the My Account and then Profile Information and Opt-in choices.
First solo is a pretty special time for any pilot. We all remember ours, but it's also a milestone for your CFI. Warren Morningstar has the story of a CFI, his student, and a very special first solo.
This is a tradition almost as old as flying itself.
Yes, sir. Mags off, brake set, throttle closed.
Brake set, mags hot, throttle crack.
A fledgling sits alone in the cockpit for the first time. The flight instructor stands by the runway, confident he has taught the student everything he needs, but still slightly nervous, hoping the student remembers it all. And for this CFI, this solo has a very special significance.
My dad soloed me on my 16th birthday. I soloed Teddy on his 16th birthday, and today is Tom's 16th birthday. So it's history.
3 takeoffs and landings, and another for the history books.
Take it to the barn. 1 down. 2 to go.
Yes, young Tom isn't finished yet.
Fired up. He cranks that airplane a whole lot better than I do. He flew like a champ, but obviously he don't need me no more. I couldn't be happier, man. He, first of all, he soloed that Cub. That was cool enough. That would have been a cool day right there. But jumped right in the Stearman, shot 3 landings. Good performance there. Of course, the big deal's been the T-6. You know, he's a solo pilot, but now he's also complex and high performance. Man, I was beside myself. He's done 2 things that's never been done in Tippin aviation history. First of all, he soloed a glider at 14. And secondly, now he soloed a Cub, a Stearman, and a T-6 all on the same day. So Dad couldn't be happier.
There's lots of aviation history and tradition in the Tippin family.
My Uncle Billy and my dad and Uncle Billy's twin brother, all 3 of them were aviators. And my dad, he didn't have to prod me much, because but from the time I was 4 years old, the first airplane I ever put my hands on the controls of was a DC-3. Yeah. And so I had to have enough logbooks on my little fanny so I could see over the instrument panel. But from that minute forward, I knew what I wanted to do, and that was fly for a living.
But the airline job just didn't work out.
So, I meant to be in aviation. This music thing came out of left field, man. I don't know what happened there.
Well, what happened was 5 gold and 1 platinum album and some 30 charted country singles. And the apple didn't fall very far from the tree.
I plan to go to college at Belmont and work on maybe music business and also maybe music performance and songwriting, and just I like to pursue that as a passion, as my job, but as a hobby, I love flying. It's awesome.
Oh, and by the way, the following day, Tom Tippin went to get his driver's license. Warren Morningstar, AOPA Live.
Thanks, Warren. It's great to be down there. I got to say that very proud father and mother. And Tom is a really, really great kid and a really good musician, too. He sang some songs for us. Very impressive. He's got a big future ahead of him, both in aviation, I think, and in music.
Great story. Thanks for bringing it to us. As this is our last regular show before Christmas, we thought we'd help you out with your shopping. Looking for that perfect stocking stuffer for the pilots in your life? Well, just look at our website. We have some suggestions for things that pilots want and that fit in a stocking and won't break the bank. Example, flashlights. A pilot can never have enough. And batteries, can't have enough of those either. For more ideas, just head over to aopa.org.
And finally this year, as in the past, NORAD will be tracking Santa as he flies around the world. They have a pretty nifty website so the little ones can watch. And our friends in the Civil Air Patrol are going to be providing weather observations for Santa. You'll be able to hear their HF radio reports on the website as well.
But did you ever wonder how NORAD got into the Santa tracking business? The story begins even before the birth of NORAD. It seems it all began with a misprint. In 1955, Sears had an ad with the wrong number for kids to call Santa. It was actually the hotline to the operations desk at the Continental Air Defense Command, NORAD's predecessor. Colonel Harry Shoup cheerfully had his staff check the radar for Santa, and the kids on the phone got updates, and a tradition was born. Today, the men and women of NORAD, along with family and friends, volunteer every Christmas to answer kids' calls and emails and update the website. And of course, with NORAD's infrared satellites locked on the heat of Rudolph's nose and Santa cams around the world, NORAD knows exactly where Santa is, and it brings a lot of joy to the world. Have you ever called the number?
I have not called the number. But I think Santa would have XM weather, right? Does he really need the HF reports? I don't know.
He better get his ADS-B too.
Yeah, really, because he'd be locked out of all that airspace come 2020. He needs to invest now.
And that's it for this year. Next week, please join us for our Director's Cut show as we look back at some of the best stories from the year.
And we'll be back on January 12th for our first show of the new year. Until then, thank you for your time and commitment to AOPA and AOPA Live this week. We wish you and yours the happiest of holidays.